All right, welcome into week 13 of Power 5 picks. Almost there. 2 more weeks of the regular season. Then we get into conference championships. And we're coming down to that time of the year where things are getting absolutely crazy, absolutely insane. Unfortunately, we do have a couple pretty good games, but unfortunately for the most of the SEC, they are playing their easy peasy opponents, which again, they're the only conference that does it. I know every team plays these cakewalk games, but everyone gets rid of it at the beginning of the year except the SEC. So we do have some pretty crappy SEC games this week. But there is that big Big Ten game, one of the biggest of the year, and we get a chance to see if Indiana is maybe fraudulent or not. We do have Army Notre Dame, which would be a great game, and then a couple other games that we're going to talk about. But first, Ethan, how are you? I know we record on Thursdays, but me and Ethan are actually going to be in attendance at the Michigan Northwestern game. Again, not the greatest of games, but me and Ethan will be watching, possibly making some content out there in Ann Arbor. Excited for that. But Ethan, welcome. How you doing?
Yeah, Ann Arbor on Saturday, East Lansing on Friday for the Michigan State Purdue game. So big football weekend here. I was actually looking at tickets to go to the Lions game down in Indianapolis on Sunday, but a little far out of my price range. So we'll stick with the two. But yeah, really looking forward to Saturday. Like you said, might be a crappy game, but hopefully we can win some bets and make it good. So yeah, coming off a good college football weekend, went 4-1. My only loss was Michigan State. Don't even remember all the teams I won on. Georgia, I believe, was one of them. But yeah, had a good weekend. I'm honestly not sure how I ended up on the show. I think maybe 3-2 or even 2-3. But off a nice Saturday and looking to hopefully get closer to even, as I'm still quite a few units down on the year. But hoping by conference championship to be pretty close to a break even year.
Yeah, speaking of the show, you did in fact go 2-3. I believe that is your first losing record on Power 5 picks 12 weeks into the season. That brings your record to 38, 23-1, still extremely profitable. Then I did have a sneaky 4-1 this weekend. My only loss being the under in that Missouri South Carolina game, but 4-1 for me, bringing my record to 36-27. If you're tailing,
Oh,
any of us, you're making some money this year throughout the entire year. Ethan's more profitable than me, but we are both making you a pretty penny. And let's continue it into this week. Let's start. And, we do have the college football playoff rankings coming out every week now. The Big 12 is getting shafted, and rightfully so. This conference sucks, but we do have two Big 12 games that are just fishier than fishy to start it off. Honestly, pick your poison with the fishy. We'll start with the BYU against Arizona State. This is 14th ranked BYU, 9-1 on the year, traveling to Arizona State, who's ranked 21st. Arizona State's 8-2 on the year. Arizona State is a 3-point home favorite. Over under is 48.5. Obviously, BYU coming off that loss against Kansas last week. They should have lost the week prior. We all knew BYU is frauds, but now it's turning out they're becoming a little bit more fraudulent than we thought. And this Arizona State team has kind of came up out of nowhere. Again, the Big 12, we don't talk about them because the conference sucks. They might get a team in to that playoff, but yeah, I'll send it to you first. Who do you got in this Arizona State BYU game?
yeah, who would have thought in week 12 we'd be talking about, or week 13, whatever week we're in, we'd be talking Arizona State BYU as one of our Power 5 picks here. But here we are. Yeah, I mean 9-1 versus 8-2, a ranked matchup. I'm taking Arizona State. I think BYU continues to show that they were a little bit fraudulent all year, and really just think it's a bad spot for BYU. Tried hanging on as best they can to that undefeated record. Had multiple chances late in the red zone against Kansas and just couldn't punch one in for the win there. So a gritty game down to the wire that they ultimately just couldn't pull off. And it's hard for me to see them now having to travel to Arizona State and pick themselves off the mat and give a good competitive effort in this one. Arizona State is off a big win themselves against K-State, but a little different. They were up 24-0, gave up 2 late touchdowns in the second half, but they were in control of that game the whole time. So, you had one game where the winning team was comfortable, one where the losing team was fighting to the final minute to try to get that win and save their undefeated season. So I just like the spot here a little bit more for Arizona State at home. off a game that wasn't as emotional. So it's not a. I don't know for sure if I'll be playing this game or not, but if I am, it's definitely going to be on Arizona State minus the points.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Arizona State on the spread. I don't believe in BYU at all. I love what Arizona State's doing this year. I actually called them on the show. If you do, I'll put a little clip in here. I did call Arizona State in the +8, but I also called for the money line. They won that game outright, like you mentioned, by 10 points. Easily could have been more. So I really like this team. I think they're scrappy. I think they have a lot to play for. Obviously, 8-2 getting into the rankings. They still have a shot at that Big 12 title game if they beat BYU. I like what they got going here. And then BYU, as everyone knows, the wheels are falling off the wagon here. You know, they had an impressive win against SMU to start the year, didn't play anyone, and now are kind of getting exposed. So I think Arizona State has so much more to play for. I'll take them at home on the spread. I do think it's going to be a pretty close game, probably a pretty entertaining game as well. But I do think Arizona State is going to pull it off, hopefully by a field goal in this one. Let's move to that equally ugly Big 12 game, also at 3:30. This is number 16 Colorado at Kansas. Colorado is a 2.5 point favorite on the road. Over under is 59.5 in this game. Ah, I despise Colorado, Dion and his guys, but for some reason they just keep winning this year. And again, the Big 12's ass. So sure, they're 8-12. I do think they're going to get pummeled whenever they play a real team, especially if they do make it to the college football playoff. And then Kansas sitting at 4-6 on the record. Again, very tough start, but this Kansas team was ranked. I was on Kansas last week against BYU. They got it done. I think people are starting to realize that Kansas is better than their record, and the fact that Colorado is still the favorite kind of makes me want to take Colorado. Again, Colorado is always going to be the public team, though, so I'm really facing some demons here, trying to figure out which poison I want to take. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to lean with Colorado. I'm going to take them. I think they're going to play for this Big 12 championship game. And I ultimately do think Colorado is going to be that 12th seed in the college football playoff. So I got to take Colorado to win this game. And I hate it. But I do think the Kansas little recent success is going to come to an end. So Colorado on the spread, but I really don't want to put any money on it just because I honestly want to root for them to lose. I don't know what it is in me. I don't know what it is, but I can't stand this team. They're very equal to like Ohio State or Michigan State for me. I don't hate them as much, but just can't stand these guys. But I do think they're the better team. They just keep finding ways to win. They've been down multiple scores in previous games and then it's come storming back. So I got to take Colorado. I'll have Travis Hunter continue his Heisman race. I think Colorado probably wins this game by at least a touchdown.
Yeah, you said that pretty well. I feel the exact same way. I'm leaning Colorado, but I hate this game. Um, yeah, I'm just seeing here. This line went open back in like the spring or summer before we were still months out from any games. Kansas was an 8.5 point favorite in this one,
Wow.
so it's pretty crazy how the season kind of unfolded. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just say I'm probably not betting this game, but for the graphic, Colorado, I think college football would benefit from Colorado making the playoff. It's just been a fun story for a lot of people. I'm with you. I don't really like the team or the whole Dion situation, but I think it would do college football well to have them in that 12-team playoff and see how well they could do. So, yeah, I don't know if it's going to help them here on the road against Kansas, but I just feel like Kansas' luck is kind of running out. Kind of like what you said, they had a tough matchup against their rival Kansas State, lost that game by 2. Kansas State 16th at the time, then back-to-back ranked wins, Iowa State and BYU. So, it's been a tough schedule for them. They've fared pretty well, but I think the magic ends here. Don't love it whatsoever. Not a play I'm going to probably make. Yeah, I don't even think I'll consider it on Saturday, but give me Colorado for the graphic.
Yeah, this brings us to I believe there might be more, but there's 3 undefeated teams that are in talks. There might be some lower division teams, but I actually don't think there are. One of the 3 remaining undefeateds is number 19 Army. They're 9-0 and they're traveling to number 6 Notre Dame, who is 9-1. Notre Dame is a 14.5 point favorite in this game. Over under is 44.5. Now, Notre Dame is a NIU win away from potentially being the number 1, number 2 team in the country. I think they just keep beating themselves up that they lost to a MAC school. Because again, this would have been a fantastic Notre Dame year. They're still going to make the college football playoff. I think they still make it even with the loss if they lose this game, just because they don't have a conference championship game. They're going to probably beat USC next week. It's the perks of being an out of conference school. But I'll send it to you first. Who do you got in this pretty good matchup? I think the spread's a little high, but who are you taking in this one?
Yeah, I feel like this might be one of my favorite games. So I'm going to take Notre Dame minus the points here. It's a lot to lay, but I think the 14.5 is a little bit telling. Seems very easy to take the undefeated team plus over 2 touchdowns. But to be honest, we kind of saw this game already when Navy played Notre Dame, 51-14, and it was over really right as it started. I mean, Notre Dame flew out to an early lead and never looked back. I could see a very similar game here. They do have USC on deck, a team they're very familiar with, but USC sucks. There's definitely no look ahead. This game is being played at Yankee Stadium, so it's kind of a special game for Notre Dame. It's not one that they're not going to look past an undefeated Army team anyway, but I think that gives them just a little bit more of a nod to want to go in and show out. And to me, Notre Dame's winning out. I mean, I think they're going to beat Army and USC and end their season at 11-1. It just becomes at that point by how many points are they going to beat Army. Just don't think Army can keep up. I think it's going to be very similar to what we saw against Navy. And I think the line is pretty telling. So give me Notre Dame in a blowout.
Yeah, I have Army circled, and I don't love it, but I'm gonna take a shot on them on the plus 14.5. Yeah, I completely agree with the Navy game. I do think Army is much better than Navy, but the problem with these military academies is if you go down big, it's really hard to get back in the game. You don't pass the ball. You run the ball, and the only time you ever pass is if you just set it up for 8 consecutive run plays and then throw a little pop pass. And Notre Dame's not going to fall for it. Some of these mid-major American teams will probably fall for it. Like there's a reason Army's 9-0. But I don't know. There's something about this game that just makes it feel a little different to me. I hope Army's quarterback is healthy. I believe he is because he is by far their best player and a big portion of their the reasoning for them being 9-0. I think he's their leading rusher, leading touchdown scorer, leading passer. But again, they don't really pass much. I don't know. I got a weird feeling the Army is gonna. I don't know. I think they're going to keep it close. And again, I don't feel super confident about this. This is more of a gut play. This is the definition of a gut play. As soon as you ever hear someone say, I got a weird feeling, that is just their gut talking. Not a whole lot of logic behind this. I like your reasoning. Notre Dame on the 14.5. People might think that's going to be an easy bet for Army, who's 9-0. You get the hook. But I'm going to take a shot on the easy bets. I'm going to take a shot on what is popular. Yeah, again, don't feel super confident about it. Just a strict gut play. So we'll see what happens. I am looking forward to watching this game. I do hope it's a little more entertaining than that Navy game, but it very well could end very similar. Let's move to probably the most public bet team of the weekend. This is number 15, Texas A&M at Auburn. Texas A&M is only a 2.5 at the time of recording, 2.5 point favorite on the road against Auburn, who is 4-6 and flat out ass. I'm going to send it to you. I will just let you guys know there is 89% of the bets coming in on Texas A&M on the spread. This was at 3 points. It is down to 2.5. Ethan, who do you got?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious who I have. Texas A&M has Texas on deck here. I think they can wall trade into Auburn and get the win, and then they're going to need that win after losing to South Carolina, and then the opener against Notre Dame. They're going to need that Texas win. So, also, did you hear Mike Elko this week in a press conference? Okay, I have a quote pulled up here, so just bear with me. Quote, I don't think our focus is an issue. When you're in the situation we're in, it's easy to focus on the task at hand. I think those big games earlier in the year, maybe you look ahead. If we didn't have at stake what's at stake, maybe you would worry about it. I think our focus is single-handedly on Texas, or Auburn right now, and locked in on what we got to get done. Blatantly just said. Whoops.
Oh, God.
Did I say that? Uh-oh. Yeah, they're looking for Texas. Give me Auburn.
I'm going to use that quote in a video over on my TikTok page because that is fantastic reporting on your behalf. Um, yeah, I mean, it's Auburn. Why would it not be Auburn? I mean, both teams have look ahead spots, like you said. Texas A&M has in-state rival Texas. Auburn has in-state rival Alabama, which is the Iron Bowl, probably the second best rivalry in college football, in my opinion. So both teams have look ahead spots. There's just a difference. One team is 8-2, playing a 9-1 team currently in Texas, and the other team is 4-6 and has to win out to be bowl eligible, which is not looking fantastic for them. So I think, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It is 100% a look ahead spot for A&M. The line makers clearly know this. Public's all over A&M. Line and sportsbooks don't care. They're still pushing it down to Texas A&M because the more they get people jumping in on Texas A&M, the more money they're going to make when Auburn wins outright. So I love Auburn, probably my favorite bet of the slip. Also, equally the ugliest bet of the of the 5 games we were talking about. But it is the definition. This is the line we salivate over. This is what we love. A super public team in a look ahead spot against a terrible opponent. I do like the fact that it is at Auburn. Again, probably not a whole lot of home field advantage for a crappy football team, but they are on the road. It is tough to win no matter who you're playing on the road. But yeah, I love Auburn. I actually think they win outright. I think the SEC and the College Football Playoff Committee will take a deep breath of relief when Texas A&M loses and gets knocked out of the SEC championship game as well as the college football playoff. Because currently, if you guys have not looked at the SEC standings, you should go do that, and you'll put your brain in an absolute pretzel. There's one team with 1 loss in Texas, and I think there's 5 teams or 6 teams sitting at 8-2. So it is an absolute nightmare. With a bunch of different tiebreaker rules and everything going on in the SEC right now and in the College Football Playoff Committee. So they can get a couple losses, especially to a loss that no one really chalked up here to Auburn. I think it'll be a deep sigh of relief to a lot of people. So I love Auburn. I think they win this game outright.
My one fear, as always, and I've said multiple times, Peyton Thorne is ass, but
it's
still
true.
like him.
Old Michigan State QB at Auburn, but you know, on paper, like he's pretty athletic. He can run it, he can sling it. I just don't think, yeah, his decision making is not there. He's kind of like a Joe Milton kind of guy who was an ex Michigan guy, but probably is going to look great in the combine. He's going to have great numbers, probably decent
Right.
40, can throw the ball 70 yards, but then you put him in a game and yikes.
Right.
But that brings us to the game of the week. This is number 5, Indiana, 10-0. Again, the second remaining undefeated team in the Big Ten, playing number 2, Ohio State, at Ohio State. Obviously, Ohio State has a 1 loss to Oregon. Ohio State is lines moving around a lot. At the time of recording on Thursday night, this is Ohio State as a 12-point favorite. Over-under has gone up a little bit at 53. Again, these could shift a little bit come recording. I've been slandering on Indiana all year. It's one of my favorite things to do. And as you can see, they are 10-0, probably pretty close to that on the spread as well. I've been getting my ass kicked on these Hoosiers. I did see once this regular season ends, they will play 7 of the 8 worst teams in the Big Ten. They finished the season with Northwestern, I believe. So they will play the bottom 8 teams of the Big Ten, every single one of them except one. And their only real opponent, I guess, is going to be Ohio State. So are they good? Yes. Are they number 5 team in the country? No. And I think everyone knows that except Indiana Hoosiers fans who just all of a sudden came alive out of absolutely nowhere. But they make sure their voice is heard on all of my videos. I talk shit about Indiana. So maybe we'll get some in the comments here. But I'm going to take Indiana. I'm going to take them on the spread, and I absolutely hate it, but I think it's just too much of a talking point that Indiana hasn't played anyone. Now, Ohio State's pretty damn good. I'm going to take Indiana on the spread, and I think my favorite bet is going to be Indiana first half spread. Ohio State starts off slow every single week, and then they absolutely explode. They were down 7-0 last weekend against Northwestern into the second quarter, like well into the second quarter, had a block punt, had a bunch of crap go their way, ended up, winning that game easily. But Ohio State started slow every single game this year. They were in a 1-score game against Marshall up until halftime. They're just a slow starting team. And I think Indiana has a passing attack to make Ohio State, sweat out a slow start. I ultimately think Ohio State wins this game, but I do think it's going to come down to a 1-possession game. So I'll take I don't know why I keep saying Alabama. I'll take Indiana on the spread for the graphic, but my actual real favorite play is Indiana first half. I don't know what the spread is. I don't have it written down, but I do like that as my favorite play.
Yeah, I am on the opposite side here, and I love Ohio State. Might be bet of the year for me.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. This reminds me of Georgia, Kentucky last year, which we've brought up multiple times. But, I mean, you mentioned it. Indiana hasn't beaten a soul. Their best home win is 6-5 Washington, maybe Michigan, 5-5. Best road win is the Spartans, like 4-6 Spartans. That is their best road win. Now they have to go to Ohio State. Don't care about records. I don't care about rankings. Ohio State is and has been the best team in college football this season. I think they're going to win the national championship. They have Michigan on deck, obviously. You mentioned Iron Bowl is the second biggest rivalry, obviously, behind Michigan and Ohio State. But come on, they're not looking ahead to Michigan this year. I mean, they just aren't. Yes, it's the defending national champ, but you just have to imagine they're not going to have too many problems this year beating Michigan. This is the game for them. They want to shut up Indiana, and they're going to do it. This might be a 5-unit play for me. I've already gotten in, and the line is coming down. Indiana's public. I mean, Ohio State by 30, and I'm not even just saying that. I really think Ohio State wins this game by 30-plus points. I think they just blow them out.
First of all, Michigan has Ohio State right where they want them. Second of all, if this is the one game where I actually take Indiana and they get smoked like I think they're going to get smoked, I'll be very upset. But this does put, again, the committee in a very difficult situation here. What happens if Indiana gets rolled? Like you're saying, like a lot of people are thinking, what happens when they lose by 40 points? Are they going to stay in the playoff as a one-loss team, or are they going to kick out a Tennessee or an Ole Miss or a potentially Texas A&M or another 2-loss SEC team, or are they going to put in Colorado with a couple losses? I don't know what the committee is going to do with Indiana. Do you have anything? I know we'll have an episode coming out with our predictions or with our bracket of the playoff, but do you have any thought of what will happen? Because I agree Ohio State's going to win. But if they get rolled, do you think Indiana's still going to get in as a 10, 11, 12 seed?
It's just going to depend on how everything shakes out. I mean, probably, because that's a good loss, a road loss against the number 2 team in the country. To be honest with you, I didn't get to pay too much attention to the playoff rankings this week. Was at that concert on Tuesday and just haven't really gotten caught up. So I'll have a better answer for you probably next week. And once we get closer, dig into that. But I would say this loss probably does not eliminate them from the playoffs unless something crazy happens.
Yeah, we have seen last year, the committee, obviously it was a 4-team playoff last year. We have a 12-team playoff this year, but the committee left out Florida State because of their quarterback injuries, strength of schedule. So the committee's done it before, and they've done it recently. So I could see, if it's a blowout like you're saying, I could potentially see Indiana getting shafted, and I hope they do in that case. But that's going to do it for Power 5 picks. Go ahead.
Sorry, one last thing. Indiana has been favored every single game this year, which means with their now 8-year, very expensive head coach, never been an underdog. So win or lose, cover or not, it will be interesting to see how he does in his first game as a dog.
That is true. Yeah, but that's going to do it for Power 5 picks. Again, we could talk football for hours if you guys can't tell. We will have a couple more videos coming out, potentially some playoff predictions, like I was saying, bracket predictions. We do have our college basketball show, and an NBA show, NFL show, NHL show, MMA show. We do it all here at Power 5 Picks. So make sure you do like, subscribe, and share. It's the best way to support us. It's the best way to see all of our content. We appreciate you guys. Good luck this weekend. Again, stay tuned for potentially a special episode at Michigan Northwestern. Me and Ethan will be in attendance there. But we appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next week.
You better start listening to the Better in Green podcast. You will not regret it. Trust me, trust me, trust me. And hey, I'm Dean Blandino.
Welcome to better win green, eh? You better win green, eh? You better win green, eh? Listen in and cash out, that's what it's all about. Come on, let's make cash now. We always on spot and we cover old spot from the bottom to the top, hey. Shout out to Ethan, shout out to Wyatt, shout out to Ben. Welcome to our podcast. Better win green.